Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm Lorata Chiangwa. I'm a Senior Account Manager at APO Group, and I'll be your host today. It's my pleasure to moderate the session. This event is facilitated by the International Sports Association Africa, and the online press conference will mark as the official announcement of Herbert Mensah's candidacy for the presidency of Rugby Africa. Dedicated to the sustainable growth of the sport in Africa, Herbert views the continent as a key region with huge potential for the future development of rugby. Over the years, many moments have shaped the face of rugby on the continent, and Herbert is here today to discuss his candidacy, as well as the common goal to help African rugby break through on the international stage. Today, we're joined by our esteemed panel, which is headed by Herbert Mensah, President of the Ghana Rugby Football Union, candidate for the presidency of Rugby Africa, as well as high-ranking senior executives from rugby federations operating in Africa. I would now like to take this opportunity to introduce you to Dr. Ademola Are, who is the president of the Nigeria Rugby Union. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Are.
Good morning, everyone, presidents and other major stakeholders that are present for this discourse. Basically, we're here to sell our candidate, Herbert Mensah. And some people were asking me, who is Herbert Mensah? And I told them that Herbert Mensah is a Ghanaian businessman, a sports administrator, and the president of Ghana Rugby Union. He's an alumnus of Achimota Secondary School in Accra and a graduate of economics at Sussex University. He played rugby in his younger days in Success and Saracens. He's an international businessman. And he ensured that Ghana's blueprint was presented at the Ghana Rugby Stakeholders Forum to bring Ghana at par with other countries in Africa and in the world. He also ensured that Ghana's coaches were involved and very proficient by passing the levels 1 and 2 rugby coaches to ensure that they're at par with all the people all around the world so that the Ghana can be at par with all of them. And he also ensured that Ghana became full member of World Rugby through the professional league and the club championships. Herbert Mensah, you will all agree with me, is a good mobilizer of human beings and resources. He engaged corporate organizations in Ghana, such as Accra Breweries, Interplast Ghana, Vodafone in Ghana, and Zain Petroleum, who were all involved in sponsorship of Ghana Rugby. And you will all agree with me that this is the kind of person that we are really looking forward to be the president of Rugby Africa. Not only this that I've mentioned, he is a lover of the players. He ensured that the welfare of the players are taken seriously, whether in and out of play. He fixed the Land Rover Discovery Tour in Africa, which was sponsored by Land Rover to raise charity funds for Max Bruto, an Ivorian player who got paralyzed during the World Cup in 1995. He also guaranteed payment of entitlements and ensured effective welfare coverage for players. And you will agree with me that because of some of these qualities that we have seen in him, the Nigerian Rugby Football Federation decided en masse, especially at a board meeting on the 15th of February, during our seminar for Level 1 World Rugby for medical personnel, that yes, we all want to go along with Mensah to become the president of Rugby Africa. And that was why Nigeria in its entirety nominated him to be in this position, so that we can tap into the values that this man has. We want to tap into his experience. We want to tap into the various opportunities that are bound. He has changed the lives of players in Ghana. He has changed the face of rugby in Ghana. Not only in rugby, if you look at the football, he has done so many things in the corporate world. He has done a lot of things. And this is somebody that motivates others. He liaises with other people. He's a team player. which is very important for Rugby Africa. We need to move Rugby Africa from the present level to a higher level. And there's no other man that can do this except Mr. Herbert Mensah, the president of Ghana Rugby Union. We are for you, and we are going to vote for you. Thank you very much.
Wow, Dr. Are, thank you so much for those encouraging words. We truly appreciate it. That was Dr. Are, who's the president of the Nigeria Rugby Union. Moving on, we've got Faustine Dahito, who is the president of the Benin Rugby Federation. Faustine, over to you. Thank you.
C'est à moi? Allô?
Hi, Faustine, we can hear you.
Est-ce que c'est à mon tour de parler?
Oui, tout à fait. Allez-y, Faustin.
Bonjour tout le monde. Nous sommes très honorés de supporter un candidat comme Herbert Mensah. Comme nous avons déjà dit lors de notre réunion d'Accra, les défis pour le développement du rugby africain sont légion. Et nous avons besoin d'un homme d'expérience qui a fait ses preuves sur le plan de la pratique, sur le plan technique, sur le plan du management organisationnel. Et nous pensons, vu ses qualités, vu le leadership que nous lisons en cet homme de conviction, que nous devons faire l'unanimité pour porter tous ensemble dans l'unité, dans l'union, Herbert Mensah comme président de la Confédération africaine du rugby, Rugby Africa. Je ne vais pas en dire plus. Les temps sont comptés. Nous partons à Cape Town pour voter Herbert Mensah, président de la Confédération africaine du rugby, Rugby Africa. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Faustine. We appreciate that. That was Faustine Dahito, who is the president of the Benin Rugby Federation. Moving on, we're going to move over to Sean Irish, who is the president of the Botswana Rugby Union. And he's going to say a few words about Herbert. Thank you. Sean, over to you, please.
Afternoon, Africa. I think one of the great things about Herbert is that we all know that he's a strong leader and a well-achieved leader in that as well. What he's done for rugby in Ghana as well as football, and what he's done in business, not only just on the African continent, but also in Europe. So that gives us great insight to his ability to what he can achieve and where he can go. One of the great things with Botswana Rugby Union executive when we sat on the 24th of February and decided on who we were going to support was that not only did he show us his strategy, but he also showed us bite sizes of how he planned to execute his strategy. And for us, that is very impressive because a lot of talk is cheap. And he has the ability to actually walk the walk, which is something that really impressed our executive. He also told us about what team he wants around him and why he wants certain individuals around him, so that he's got a committee that is prepared to work with him. And that in itself is a great strength. So he's not choosing a committee that is going to be at loggerheads continuously with, and we in Africa Rugby will never get forward on that. So those are some of the biggest reasons why Botswana Rugby decided as an exco to follow Herbert in this perspective. Another area that we really looked at is what he's going to do for the development of rugby. And he's got a plan to develop the likes of Namibia and Kenya, Zim, and that's the top teams within Africa. But he's also got a plan for the smaller unions, the Eswatinis, the Lesotho's, Mozambique, Benin, know how to develop and grow their rugby so it becomes a stronger African rugby continent in totality. So those are the great things we had. And I think the good doctor from Nigeria earlier gave us a great insight to Herbert's history. So I'm not going to repeat all that again. But we support Herbert because we believe he's the strongest candidate. He's going to be the best leader. He's putting a team around him that's going to be the best team for rugby within Africa. And for us, that's the most important. What's going to happen for rugby within Africa?
Thank you, Sean. We appreciate that. That was Sean Irish, who's the president of the Botswana Rugby Union. And thank you so much. And moving on, we're going to move on to Adama Bakoum, who is the board member of the Senegal Rugby Union. Adama, over to you, please.
Bon, bonjour tout le monde. Je suis Adama Bakoum, vice-président à la Fédération sénégalaise de rugby. Je vais peut-être éviter de faire de la relecture parce que mes prédécesseurs ont déjà parlé de la personne de Herbert Mensah. Donc, plus besoin de retourner sur ses qualités humaines. Je vais plutôt orienter ma prise de parole autour de programmes pour lesquels nous nous sommes entendus. Parce que quand on s'engage avec quelqu'un, on s'engage avec lui sur un programme. Est-ce que c'est la personne idéale pour conduire ce programme-là pour le rugby africain? Et nous avons identifié avec lui 3 à 4 axes qui nous paraissent extrêmement importants. Le premier axe, on en a encore parlé ce matin, c'est de faire en sorte de gérer qu'il y ait une bonne gouvernance dans les fédérations africaines et au niveau de Rugby Afrique, qu'il y ait une stabilité dans nos fédérations. Et on s'est entendu sur ça et Herbert en a fait une priorité pour stabiliser nos fédérations. Et ça, c'est extrêmement important pour l'image de marque que nous allons donner, nous, Africains. Le deuxième axe, ce sont les compétitions. On ne peut pas aujourd'hui, ce que nous avons reproché à l'équipe sortante, c'est de n'avoir pas eu suffisamment de compétitions, notamment pour les petites nations. Aujourd'hui, Herbert vient avec un programme qui va permettre à toutes les fédérations, soient-elles mineures, de jouer au rugby. Et ça, c'est capital. Jouer au rugby pour les fédérations mineures, mais aussi avoir un programme pour la haute performance. Donc, aussi bien travailler le développement, mais travailler aussi la haute performance, de façon à ce que des équipes comme la Namibie, des équipes comme le Kenya puissent aller au niveau mondial. Donc ça, c'est un programme intéressant et ambitieux. Après, pour conduire tout ce programme-là, et bien entendu, il en faut des moyens. Et il faut quelqu'un qui connaît le business du sport pour aller chercher les moyens adéquats pour financer tous ces programmes de développement. Et nous avons retrouvé en sa personne quelqu'un qui connaît le business du sport, quelqu'un qui connaît le business tout court et qui peut justement permettre d'attirer des sponsors, d'attirer des personnes qui vont nous accompagner dans le développement du rugby africain. Donc voilà un peu le programme qui fait que nous au Sénégal, nous dans la partie francophone, nous soutenons Herbert dans son programme et nous allons tout faire pour qu'il soit président et qu'il puisse dérouler ce programme-là qu'il a établi avec nous. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you so much, Adama. And that was Adama Bakoum, who is a board member of the Senegal Rugby Union. Now moving on, we're going to go over to the man himself, Herbert Mensah, the president of the Ghana Rugby Football Union, candidate for the presidency of Rugby Africa. Thank you, Herbert. Over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Loretto. First, I need to thank everybody, and I speak here on behalf of my colleagues, my vice president, the extraordinary Elvis Tano, larger than life. I'm so glad that I have him here today. I have Paula as well here, as well as all my other colleagues. I think it is important for us to understand the way that we manage. I think you have a group of people here who understand that we are here to serve. We're not here because it is part of our ego. It is because we are here to serve. And therefore, if I take this opportunity and I'm successful, people have to understand that it is because I work with a team. I think Sean picked this up and others have picked it up as well, that they've got to be extraordinary. And Adama, who just spoke in his capacity as an EXCO member from Saturday, in his capacity as somebody who will be responsible for competitions. We believe that rugby, the second largest sport in the world, needs to be repositioned. As a marketer and as a businessman, we understand it is about image and imagery. And in order, therefore, to reach the point where you can look for money, and we've been through this before in previous lives. I say previous lives when we run perhaps one of the greatest football clubs in the world. When I say Kumasi Asante Kotoko, disputable to some, is you have to clean up the image. And we understand that. So the team comes together with extraordinary people, which you've heard us mention many, many times before. As I said, my vice president is here, Adama is here, we have Herman, we have Paola, we have Roland, we have Sean, we have Marcel, we have RF. So many great people, and one or two that I probably left out, and forgive me for that in this short period of time. But once it is that we move through that, we have to understand that with the respect of the outgoing EXCO, we cannot take office and do the same things. We have to change. And part of the issue of imagery is to look at the question of governance. Adama, my brother, calls it stability, and he's absolutely correct. We have to look at the issues that there is governance and other related problems throughout the continent. We have to fix that. We have to change the image so that therefore it is that this team, this reconstituted team, this team that respects the big and respects the small, can then look at the imagery that brings us to the point where it is the mantra that I love to speak about all the time can take effect. And that is, sport is big business. And yes, it is. Africa has got so many beautiful and wonderful things, and yet it is we are disadvantaged in many ways. We are going to break down borders. This is the first time that we speak where we have brother on brother. My brother Elvis Tano is my next door neighbor. I'm not sure who produces the better cocoa, whether him or myself. My brother Adama, I hear they say they make jollof. I don't know who makes better jollof, whether it is Senegal, whether it's Ghana, or maybe it's Dr. Ari in Nigeria. The point is, we are one, which is why our mantra developed by my brothers, Africa as one, and that was developed by Monsieur Tano, Monsieur Adama, and the rest. They brought it, and I couldn't think of anything better than that. That we have to take the respect of who we are as Africans and take this back onto the global stage if our image is right. We need to now renegotiate who we are as a people and say, if you think Mario Itoje is a great player, or if you think somebody playing in France is a great player, their heritage is actually from Africa. It starts from somewhere. Give us equity. We need to go back to World Rugby, to RFU, to FFR, to the EU, to the global bodies, and say, we do understand the importance of excellence in rugby. We do understand the issue of a right to play, getting into rugby. But you know, you in Europe, it might take you 2 hours to fly from London to Rome. But you know, it takes Monsieur Adama maybe 6 or 7 hours to go from Dakar to Addis Ababa through 4 different time zones. We don't have one national airline or one hotel group. The dynamics of running a business that is sport is fundamentally different. We need to get that respect. There's no point in the bigger bodies saying we give the money to America and we're going to ignore Africa. We need to take a hard-nosed business approach to where we go. Our governance strategies have got to be right. Amongst ourselves, Africa as one, we have decided, let us split Africa into segments where it is Sean and the boys from Lesotho and Eswatini and Zimbabwe and Zambia, etc., can also look at governance and commercial realities that can be negotiated for that part. And the same in East and in West and in North and in Central. So that when the mastermind behind our competitions, Monsieur Adama, is then able to say, we will play these kind of regional competitions so that everybody has a chance. We met in Accra a few months ago, courtesy of my extraordinary brothers in Francophone Africa. And I say extraordinary because Africa has battled to be one. We have ECOWAS, is it really one? We see what is happening in Burkina and Guinea and Mali. Is it really one? And yet here in rugby, these fine gentlemen are bringing Africa together as one. My brother next door, Faustin, Ludovic, my sister up north in Roland, we operate as one. And we therefore have to find ways that we can come together with the right funding in order to make it work. And that model will apply all over Africa. We as an EXCO, my team, myself, my brothers and sisters that we operate with, have got to be in a position where we manage 2023 and we move into 2024 with strength and with power. We have a 4-year term to get it right. A 4-year term where we're able to establish good governance, sport is big business, an opportunity for all, and a respect for womanhood, which is big for all of us here. And then we can go into global tournaments and actually perform the way that we're meant to. But we want this journey to be a journey that is carried along with all of you, members of the media, global bodies. I say join us. It's going to be a wonderful journey. It's going to be bumpy, it's going to be rocky, but what I would like to think is that my team are people that we can have good arguments with, and yet it is that we can come together to say, this is what we still want to achieve. So please join with us in this wonderful journey. Africa as one, we will conquer and we will get the respect that we deserve.
Thank you so much, Herbert. I appreciate that. We're actually just going to keep you as well on the spotlight because we're going to swiftly move over to a few Q&As. We've got a few questions for you, so hopefully you're up for the challenge. So the first question is, Mr. Mensah, if elected, what will your priorities for African rugby be?
Well, I think in part I've dealt with, but certainly it is first of all to look at structure. I've always believed that if you're going to be successful with business, you need to put a right structure together. That means a team, which hopefully we'll get on Saturday. Who is chosen is not my decision, but it is that of all the delegates. So once we have that, we need to move immediately into meetings to say structure. If the structure is right and an understanding of where the money's at, where the problems are at, and how we then roll out, that then enables us to tackle the bigger issues. Issues of governance we can tackle quite quickly. If it is, there's a will, there's a way. Issues of competitions where we have to defer to Adama, and then we have to listen to the others, it's also critical. To make sure that everybody has a job, a role, and that we have the right people, because constantly as we move, people are saying, don't put people on the exco who are going to sit there and do nothing. So we really have to see how it is that we get the right people. And I think people will look, the strategy document that we've already come out with will now have to be something that is workable, that is doable with the right people.
Excellent, thank you so much. And I'm just going to keep you there as well whilst we go through a few more questions. The second one is, what is your vision for promoting African rugby internationally?
Well, I go back again to the team. Many of us have had long discussions. It's just a few weeks ago that Vice President, hopefully Vice President, maybe it's something, Tano, Adama, Roland, myself, coordinating with Herman and with Paula and others, came together with documents, and we really worked out with the help of one or two people as to how it is that we actually get Rugby Africa back on the map. We have wishes, and everything depends on money. We have a rollout in terms of immediate, what we can do immediately and what we have to roll out with. We do have to give respect to the current president, who has chosen not to run as we go forward into Saturday's election. In terms of having run an exco for 4 years, there's a direction in which Africa has moved. We have to, in the short term, adhere to it, then shift, and then move upwards. Understanding that everybody has a right to play at the basic level, and understanding at the top level that our Kenyas and Ugandas and Namibias and Zimbabwe's must compete at the higher level. But in order to do that, we need to make sure that the Chads and the Nigers and the Mauritanias can play rugby, that the Victoria Cup in East Africa has relevance and can also develop into something else. Why can't we get Safari Sevens as part of the HSBC circuit? Why can't we do the same way as Vancouver and the rest? It now funds that rugby economy going into another point. And then beyond that, we all agreed that we are citizens of Africa. We all know something. Africans survive and exist because everybody has a relative and everybody has a friend. And we need to lean on one another to say, who in your country has enough influence for us to be able to take and make sure that governments and the AU and the rest recognize the strategic importance of rugby as a game. Look, I was in football. Rugby is different. the kind of values that you bring to kids, the kind of values that you bring to womanhood, the kind of values you bring back to society, surely make rugby something that should be part of the continental curriculum for everybody else. It only does positive things, not negative things. And if you accept that, then we should be able to get into countries and see to governments that they also start funding rugby the same way as football, for example, is funded.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Herbert. So we're just going to move on to the third question. This is actually coming from Kakuza Ramazani from the Vision Group, Kampala, Uganda. He actually has 5 questions for you, Herbert, so we're going to keep you on there. His first question is, do you have plans for the women rugby? And if so, how are you planning to better the women's rugby on the continent?
I think it's fantastic. I would love if that was possible for example, when it comes to competitions in rugby, for my brother Adama to answer that. I will talk in terms of governance, imagery, and obviously as an ex-rugby player, I can. But it would show, I think, greatly what the team is about. I'm not sure, Loretta, would that be possible? You're muted.
Absolutely, Adama. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to re-ask the question just for you to hear it. This is from Kakuza Ramazani, who's from the Vision Group in Kampala, Uganda. He has asked, do you have plans for the women's rugby? And if so, what are those plans to better it on the continent?
La question m'est revenue, c'est bien ça? OK. Je pense que le fait de parler spécialement du rugby féminin, c'est quelqu'un qui connaît le rugby. De mon point de vue, le développement va se passer sur les axes. Le rugby féminin, on l'a toujours cantonné à un rugby à 7. Ce qu'il faut se rendre compte, c'est que le rugby à 7 est trop exclusif. Le rugby à 7 rejette une grande catégorie des femmes, les exclus du rugby. Il faut que nous puissions, dans un premier temps, penser à avoir un rugby inclusif. Le rugby inclusif, ça veut dire que nos femmes aient le droit de jouer au rugby à 15, ce qui va capter le plus de femmes dans le rugby. Donc ça, c'est la première tendance, c'est de favoriser le rugby à 15 au niveau des femmes. Une fois que nous aurons augmenté la population en étant très inclusifs, nous pourrons toujours continuer à prendre les meilleurs, à prendre celles qui ont le talent, qui ont le poids qu'il faut, qui ont l'agilité qu'il faut. Celles-là, on peut les encourager à jouer au rugby à 7 et à exceller dans ce rugby à 7. Mais de mon point de vue, il faut dans un premier temps, concernant les femmes, qu'on puisse rendre le rugby inclusif en jouant du rugby à 15 où les femmes de 100 kg, de 90 kg ont droit de jouer au rugby. Deuxième axe, c'est de faire en sorte qu'au niveau des cadres techniques, qu'on ait le plus de femmes qui entraînent au haut niveau. Et ça, il faut passer par la formation. Donc ça, ce sont les 2 axes pour développer le rugby féminin. Merci.
Thank you so much, Adama. We appreciate that. We're just going to bring back Herbert back onto the spotlight and continue with the questions. Herbert, this is your second last question. And this one is basically saying, how do you intend to improve the financing of rugby in Africa?
Well, we say sport is big business, and it is big business indeed. We need to get the structure right. And I think this is where I've been speaking with all the team, but especially with Tano, hopefully the Vice President Tano. And we understand that we need to get structure right in order to get money in. We need to reestablish and relook at our relationships, because money is all about relationships. As I always say, bad money does not chase, bad things don't get good money. We need to look at our relationships and start internally. We have so many unions are playing that we need to help, so many unions that we need to change their system of governance. We need to bring in professional organizations, which we will do, to look at how it is that we communicate. It's not right that our presence in terms of communicating with the world is so small. We need to relook at the brand that is Rugby Africa. Because when money looks at you and sees that it likes what it sees, it comes to you. You don't have a right to money. Capital always has a choice. So amongst ourselves, we're really sitting down and looking and saying, we have the brand generically, but regionally, where do we go? And whatever we are planning must dovetail into the plans of the competitions and the presence of playing and the right of children to play and the encouragement of women to, as well to play. And then to understand that money in this global world where there is sponsor and donor fatigue, we have to be different. And we have histories amongst ourselves over periods of time where we've been able to show that in order to be able to attract either sponsorship or CSR related matters or other related matters like that, you have to be fundamentally different. I was talking with Paula a year or two ago, and she had some extraordinary ideas for women's rugby, talking to world rugby at that level. I want to encourage that excellence, that talent, to be able to say, you know what? Money is not available like this, but it is available like that. And how do we have to change who we are in order to attract that? And we have to do this very, very quickly because there is no time. And since there is no time, we have to move so quickly in such a way that the competitions and everything else can also mature concurrently.
Thank you, Herbert. It was very insightful. And we're going to move on to the final question. This is actually from Shloni Mutimkulu. He is a journalist from the ENCA in South Africa. And I'm just going to read you a short paragraph and then ask you the question. He said that we've seen the success of South Africa on the global stage, the men's game specifically. And we've seen Kenya, Namibia, Uganda, Zimbabwe, and other countries come up. What are the challenges faced by other countries in the continent in growing the sport? Is there a way to balance the love of football with a newer sport in rugby? And how do you intend to do this, Mr. Mensah? Over to you, Herbert.
That's great. I would, if I can, I'll answer this question in two parts. I will start, but I would like my dear friend Elvis Tano to join me in the conversation as we move. You are absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct that we as a continent think of football as the only sport. But I remember when we were in Abidjan, I'm not sure, I think it was President Tano who said, why is it not possible for every country to have a rugby pitch one of these days? So how do we gravitate ourselves from a continent where everybody knows you only play football to a continent that understands that, yes, NBA is coming in right now with huge amounts of money, but actually our children can play rugby on the beach, on the road, and move in a certain direction that it becomes like Madagascar, where Madagascar can put 40,000 people in to watch a domestic rugby game. So there is a whole side where we look at rugby in terms of marketing and placement, imagery, and how we go about things. And this led us very much into discussions in Abidjan. But let me stop now and let President Tano perhaps add a few words.
En tout cas, merci, Président Herbert. Oui, effectivement, concernant le développement du rugby dans les pays où nous avons une pratique assez insuffisante, nous avons mis en exemple la possibilité d'organiser du rugby dans tout ce qui est établissement scolaire. Aujourd'hui, à travers notre action de marketing que nous allons mettre en marche, on aura à court terme une compétition scolaire et universitaire pour tout le continent africain. Sur le plan régional, nous allons développer ces compétitions scolaires au nord, au sud, au centre, à l'est et à l'ouest. Et à la fin de ces compétitions, tous les 2 ans, on aura un tournoi général continental de 7 grandes compétitions universitaires pour assurer la relève tant au plan scolaire, universitaire, et pourquoi pas fournir du vivier pour nos différentes équipes nationales dans nos fédérations. C'est un axe de développement que nous avons mis en marche, et aujourd'hui, à Abidjan, c'est une réalité avec un tournoi avec un partenaire local qui existe aussi dans les autres pays, au Ghana, au Nigeria, au Kenya, mais nous avons ce projet pilote en Côte d'Ivoire et ça va être une révolution pour tout le continent africain. Et à travers ça, en associant bien entendu à ce projet le Getting to Rugby qui va être déployé partout en Afrique, bien entendu, le rugby continental sera équilibré sur toutes les régions. Voilà un peu ce que je voulais dire concernant le développement dans ces pays qui n'ont pas la capacité d'aller vers le sommet. Ça, c'est d'abord sur le plan développement. Et ensuite, nous envisageons une véritable politique de la haute performance. Et j'espère qu'Adama, à travers son programme, sa cellule, pourra mettre en place cette haute performance dans chaque fédération que nous allons identifier. Voilà.
Thank you, Tano. We appreciate that. And just for the media's knowledge, we'd like to say that who was speaking was actually Tano Oy Alvis Modest Tano. He is the president of the Ivory Coast Rugby Union. We're just going to bring back Herbert Mensah onto the spotlight and let him answer the rest of the question. Thank you.
Well, I think that if I get it right, I think we covered most of that in terms of how it is that we expand the game, how it is that we promote the game, how it is that we make the game a lot more popular. I think that the bases that we've covered, you'll get the idea that it is bringing all the issues together. I think rugby, you'll find, is so different from, say, football, where it's just played everywhere. And it's therefore assumed that you press a button, you now have Colts competitions, you press a button, you've now got this, you press a button, this now happens. It doesn't really happen in rugby. And therefore, it's a lot of our building blocks across the continent, even if it is that we segment into north, east, south, and so on and so forth, have got to be brought together in such a way that it makes sense. And I think that is why the competition structure that has been outlined by Adama to some extent will give an insight into how it is that that will come together. If you have it working in West and you have it working in East, you have it working in South. Recently, I've been having messages from friends in the mid-belt. So you've got Cameroon and Rwanda and Burundi, and everybody's understanding that actually, if there's a will from the top and we can get some funding, we can then start playing, bringing it up into a certain level. But this forum, the forum that we're even speaking at today, has so much significance because if you're in Europe and you have Sky TV or Canal Plus or something, in Africa, we don't. You've got SuperSport, and then you've got problems in terms of how do you run a competition other than streaming it via the internet that therefore has real value and sponsors can see it and everybody else can see. So these are the things that we're looking at and saying, this is Africa. These are our challenges. Maybe we need to look at these things on a more regional basis, but we need to have this extraordinary relationship with the media. And if the media really buy into what we're trying to do and understand the transparency of where we're going, then they themselves are the ones who are going to help us achieve this program in quick time.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Herbert. And this brings our closing for the online press conference. But before we close, I'd like to actually ask Herbert if he has any few last words that he'd like to say to the media and to the rest of us, just as a takeaway.
Well, you know, the mantra is Africa is one. What I would love to do, and I know that we are short of time, is there are one or two people that we've not heard at all from. I mean, I think to hear a couple of words from Paola, I know Roland was struggling to get online. I know it's difficult for some of my wonderful colleagues to speak for less than a few seconds. I'm talking about you, Paula, but I think it would be great just to hear 1 minute, if you don't mind, Loretta, from my side. My side is Africa is one. We are a team. We're going to show the politicians that we can do what they cannot do, i.e., we can show that we are brother on brother, sister on sister, that ECOWAS works, that the AU works in order to achieve what it is, that we are different. We may have arguments, but we will make it work without any issue. But if you don't mind, if we could have a few words from Paula, from Kevin, I'm not sure who else has not spoken, in record short time.
Okay, thank you, Herbert. I think a lot really has already been said by everybody. And I just want to confirm that I think there could not be a better candidate for the Rugby Africa presidency than Herbert. And really the reason I say so is first and foremost as a woman. He's been a great advocate and supporter and cheerleader when it comes to issues women's rugby. Truly and really, his support has been immense in just being able to give guidance in terms of structuring of the game, you know, how we position the game, how we go about raising funding for the game. He's truly been invaluable. I've also had the privilege to serve with Herbert on the finance committee, and truly I have never known anyone with more diligence than Herbert. You know, he will ask the right questions at the right time. His ability to run the meetings, there's a few of us here who also serve on that committee. Tano is also on the finance committee. And it's truly been amazing just to see him put to practice exactly what he's talking about here, just the principles of it, looking at how the investment comes in, how we actually execute it and where we apply it. And last but not least, you know, I've also heard him give invaluable advice to us on the Women's Committee. We're a small but mighty team of 4 or 5 of us who really have run and grown the women's game to what it is, while still appreciating that there's so much more that needs to be done to grow the game. So I just really want to sum up by saying that there could not be a better candidate than Herbert Mensah for the presidency of Rugby Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, Paulina. We appreciate that. And for those of you who are listening, that was Paulina Lanko. She's the Rugby Africa Executive and Women's Rugby Advisory Committee. Thank you so much. So Herbert, it seems that we do want you to stick around. We actually do have a journalist who would like to ask you a question live. So we're just going to bring them up and allow them to talk and ask the question directly to you. Hi, Adewale, can you hear us? Okay, it seems we've lost Adewale there, so we'll have to come back when he is back online. Thank you so much. Hi, Herbert. Would you like to have any last words before we officially close off?
Well, I wish everybody happiness, safety, and then for all my colleagues in Africa, I wish them a safe journey. Africa is so huge, and I know a lot of my friends, my dear brother Adama is going from Dakar to Addis, from Addis to Cape Town. It's like traveling, I guess, from here to Manila or to the Far East, and the same will happen with most of us in Africa, from north, east, southwest. I wish everybody a safe trip, but I just ask everybody, and I say this with the sincerity of my heart, please join us on this journey. Anybody who knows anything about me at all will know that I am different, I am controversial, I take no prisoners, I don't carry grudges, and I know I cannot do it myself. And as a former rugby player, it does not matter how big or how small you are, you need to play with the small guys, the big guys, the fast guys, the slow guys. This is going to be an extraordinary journey for 4 years. And I think that everybody beware, because I'm larger than life. Monsieur Tano is larger than life. Adama is larger than life. Paula, as little as she is larger than life. We know that. My dear friend Sean is definitely larger than life. And my brothers in Nigeria and all over who are not here today. Herman, I think, is struggling with his French visa, his South African visa in France, sorry. Roland was struggling to connectivity that is Africa. It is a journey. We share our memories, we share our thoughts, we share our togetherness, and it applies every single where we go. Please join us on this journey. Remember, as my brother said, Africa for Africa, Africa as one. It's all in us being together as one. We will face, we will meet, we will fight, we will make up, but we will win at the end of the day. And for me, victory is when Adama comes to me in 2 years' time and says, hey, there's a competition in Chad, huh? And between Chad and Niger and so forth, you should see it. It's fantastic. Come, don't sit in your house in Accra, and we will go to Chad and we will go and have a look. And the same way as Eswatini is saying to us, come to Eswatini. And Sean is saying, look, forget Botswana, let's go have a look there. We have to be humble, which is part of it. Humility is the only thing that is going to get us to the very top. Please join us on this journey. It is about Africa and the respect that we're trying to bring back to ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That was Herbert Mensah, President of the Ghana Rugby Football Union and candidate for the presidency of Rugby Africa. Now we're going to close off the session. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us. We truly hope that you enjoyed today's discussion about Herbert Mensah's candidacy, and our sincere gratitude to all the media who managed to join us, as well as the panelists for taking the time out to be here today. Have a lovely day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well done, Lerato.
Bye, guys. We see you in Cape Town.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Bye-bye. Safe trip, everyone, to Cape Town.
Definitely. Bye.
Bye-bye.